Do 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 funky fantasy da da dun dun da 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 the bone da 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 dun Stratos arrows da dun dun da da dun 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 War of Nerds. That was a very off weird intro where I tried to combine the Game of Thrones theme song with our handles, but I don't know, it worked or it didn't work. Welcome back to yet another episode of the War of Nerds podcast. I am the funky fantasy man, Nathan Helm, one of your hosts.
I am Alfred Muller.
I'm Ryan, also known as Stratos.
And also, for those of you who are wondering who the bull is, that's Alfred. It's his nickname, so that's why I always say it with our handles. But this episode is going to be one of our specially targeted topics that there's some controversy between the books and the TV show. It's from the theme song, obviously. George R.R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire, the Game of Thrones. Now, we're going to start off by talking about the similarities and also differences between the TV show and the books, and why I believe 100% of the fan community thought the last two seasons were absolute garbage. And if anybody does disagree, please let me know. I haven't run into one person yet who does, but I'm all ears. So anyways, we'll start with the books. So y'all, in your opinion, do you find the Game of Thrones books to be better than the TV show, or did you enjoy the TV show more?
I'll have to sit out on this part because I have not read the books, and you guys can. Yeah, I know my reading is very limited, so you guys can stone me later for this one. But I do have opinions on a little bit of what we talked about from the previous episode with our process when we got into his books and him finishing. So when we get to that point, and maybe my opinions aren't valid having not read the books, but I'll let you guys discuss this first.
Okay. So Alfred, go ahead.
I thought the first season of Game of Thrones was almost identical to the books. So I think on that regard, they're pretty even. Once they kind of got into like season 3, I think it was, it deviated more from the books. But I'm always going to root for the books over a TV show or movie just because I find you can do more with the books, you can engage more with the books. But I think it's one of the very few times that season 1 at least was on par with the books.
Yeah, I would say George Martin, the last time he wrote a Game of Thrones book was 2013, which was right around the time that the show had gotten started. And the first 5 books done. Right, we still have 2 that we're waiting on. I believe it's something
Winds
of Winter and Winds of Winter and A Song of Spring. I forgot for a moment, just like everybody else has, because it's been so dreadfully long. And is also the reason people wait until a series is finished to get into it. Now, we have the TV show. I'll start by saying I could have done without all of the close off portion. I kind of felt like it was just a live action XX. But the show, I think, honestly could have stood by itself just with the story alone and the battles and the characters. Now, season 1, like you said, yes, pretty much identical to the first book. Everything was covered up until basically season 5. Season 6, you had the Battle of the Bastards. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good turning point for Jon coming back to Winterfell and getting rid of the Ramsay Bolton, who I kind of thought was honestly just another spinoff of the Joffrey character. We already had a Joffrey.
I did think he was different enough for me, but I can see what you're saying with that. That it was again a super twisted evil villain with like a psychopath kind of villain or a sociopath kind of villain.
Yeah, I can see that.
Joffrey was like a man baby, whereas Ramsay was a full-grown man who was just a psychopath, and he enjoyed hurting people. Joffrey enjoyed hurting people, but I don't think he really understood what he was doing half the time. He just wanted to be taken seriously. You know, he was a 15-year-old kid who had inherited, Robert's throne, even though he was a bastard and had no right to the throne whatsoever due to the incest of Jaime and Cersei. Yeah, if you haven't watched or read Game of Thrones, yes, Martin does not shy away from anything that's considered taboo. But yeah, the first season, it was great. You know, Ned Stark, you had all these cool characters. You were learning bits and pieces about history from, the First Men, the Children of the Forest a little bit. You didn't really get into the Night King all so much, but you learned about the Night's Watch, which was probably one of the coolest parts of the books and the show. And of course, Jon, who's one of the coolest characters, would be, part of the Night's Watch. And Tyrion, who was another fantastic character at the very beginning. I'm very hurt with what they did to his character. They just basically ruined him and made him, and he's like he's the cleverest character. I mean, a lot of people could argue that Peeta, Littlefinger was smarter, but he really wasn't.
No.
Tyrion could outcraft anybody, and that led up to the Battle of the Black Water that even proved without Tyrion, they would have been sacked. Stannis would have had King's Landing. It would have been over, period. Tywin wouldn't have gotten there in time. So we're talking about those parts. They really led about the battles and bringing Melisandre in and showing a little bit about what she had to do with the Brotherhood and, the Lord of Light, which what even is the Lord of Light? Okay, I mean, never really was explained. She lit all the Dothraki swords on fire at the Battle of Winterfell. Like, yeah, I can do that, by the way. Praise the Lord of Light. And then they all died. Brilliant. Good job. That's how you really seal the deal. For me, though, the books kind of just became bland around book 3. And you really started to lose. Martin started off with these different characters. He writes multi-POV. And you start off with Daenerys, Jon, Eddard. Obviously, yeah, Eddard's not going to have his point of view going forward, seeing as he doesn't have a head. But Catelyn, Robb Stark, Jon, Arya, one of the coolest characters, one of the best developed characters, even leading with her arc with the Hound. Again, another one of the best characters, if not the second best character of the entire series.
Can we just say that Martin is an expert character developer and creator? Because, like, you go down the list, his characters could rival just about any character in any series just because of how interesting they are.
And I actually think, and I'll touch on this later, he does it to a fault. It actually is, in my opinion, one of the reasons he can't finish the series is because he keeps bringing in too many new characters while trying to wrap things up.
Yeah.
He's been asked at many conventions and panels. They're like, George, Mr. Martin, how do you get the coolest names ever for your characters? Like, they're so cool. And like the household names, the history of the houses and how they impact Westeros. And the Seven Kingdoms. You talk about Eddard, right? And his sister, that was Jon's mother, obviously. But the whole Battle of the Trident with Robert and, his Warhammer taking down the Targaryens and finishing the silver-haired bastards, as he would put it. And it really, Lyanna Stark, obviously she wasn't a part of the show except for in name only through backstory. But it really makes you think about, that's why House of the Dragons become so popular. You're learning about that dynasty. I spoke British there for a second. The dynasty of the sorry, narrator problems here. Just all the backstory about the Targaryens, the Fist of the First Men, which is, you learn about a lot of that history through the Night's Watch. So Jon and Sam, and oh, by the way, who is the coolest Lord Commander of the Night's Watch ever? Lord Commander Mormont. He's a savage.
Yep.
I'm just going to say that. The bear. Like, he is a beast. Um, and of course they kill him just like every other cool character in Game of Thrones.
Well, see,
Because
that's the thing with Martin. It was so new because you had people like Robert Jordan, you had Tolkien, you had all of these authors that came before him where the good guy never died. He
Mhm.
always survived. Every problem he always found out. And when Martin started this back in the 80s, it was ridiculous to see a main character die. And he may do that to a fault sometimes too. But when
Mhm.
you're bringing in too many characters, you kind of need to kill them off so you can sew up that little character arc.
I agree, but it lessens the impact when you do it too often because we want to get attached to characters. We want to see characters succeed. So you have to have somebody that comes through in the end that you've rooted for at least a portion of it. And sometimes I think he overdid that with taking away characters that people loved. And it got to a point where you're like, no, I know I'm going to like this character. I'm not going to get invested. I'm pulling myself away now so that because I
Mhm.
know they're not going to make it. I just
Yeah.
assume they're not going to make it.
Yeah.
yeah, but he knew he had readers wrapped around his little pinky finger, and knew that they would still become emotionally invested in said characters because they're like, maybe there's a chance. They're like, we're not watching Attack on Titan, so there's a
Mhm.
chance, if you get the reference. Um, if you know, you
What were
know.
you gonna say, Ryan?
I was just going to say, on top of that, like, again, I didn't read the books, but from listening to a lot of people talk about this, because it's a popular podcast topic too among writers and readers. But there are people who will outright not read chapters when they know it's about a certain character too. They will skip that person's chapter because they dislike them so much. And again, in the
Oh
movie
wow.
Well,
or like the show, you can't do that. But reading the book, you're like, oh, it's a Cersei chapter. Screw this. I'm on to the next one.
Oh wow. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
it's actually a
Uh,
very popular thing. I'm glad Ryan
Mhm.
brought that up.
see, if I had known, I probably would have skipped book 4 because that's all it is for me. Was
Mhm.
ridiculous points of view that I could care less about. But I can't do that. Like mentally, I can't be like, oh, I'm just gonna skip that because for me, when I read those chapters, there's still stuff that you're missing if you don't read it. The character skews things in their point of view, of course, but they have important information that plays in later that if you skip, you may miss, and that could affect how you feel about the book.
I agree.
About the books you were talking about, book 4. There's a thing where people were talking like, obviously, rest in peace, Eddard. He's gone. Come book 4, you've got the Red Wedding, so the majority of the Starks are wiped out. Um, John, Arya, and Sansa are left, and so is Bran and Rickon. Um, well, until Rickon is not. But anyways, murder them all. The or as the Mad King would say, burn them all. The book 4 really ticked off a lot of readers because you followed the first 3 books of these POVs of these really interesting characters. Daenerys on the other side of the sea with the
Mhm.
Dothraki horde, Jorah
Mhm.
Mormont, who is a very, very intriguing slash morally gray character that
Mhm.
becomes awesome the more he's one of the few characters that didn't get crapped on in the
Mhm.
show. And book 4 is one thing the TV show did better than the books did, because book 4 you lost Daenerys' POV, you lost Jon's, you lost Tyrion's. They just basically had hardly any chapters. Think about what happened in book 4. Tyrion, he took out Sheila or Shay.
Mhm.
He killed his father with a crossbow.
Mhm.
He was smuggled out of King's Landing by Varys. You had the battle of the Wildlings against the Night's Watch. You had them going beyond the wall. Jon, with the wildling chick, and then everything else happening. That's a lot of POV time for Jon and Tyrion alone right there.
Mhm.
You've also got the battle with the Viper in the Mountain. Tyrion
Mhm.
being charged with, Joffrey's murder. Again, Joffrey's murder is season 4, the Red Wedding. All these characters in book 4 where their POVs were just completely just, instead of following these characters that you love and adore, instead we're going to add a bunch of other pointless POVs that have literally nothing to do, that no one cares about. And we're just going to hope that you kind of get the idea when you get your 1 or 2 chapters with these characters. And guess what? Tyrion was accused of murder. All right, 10 chapters later, here's Tyrion again. But I don't care anymore. because you just left me. It's like an anime when they pause, they're in a fight that lasts for 20 episodes, and every 2 episodes you pause mid-fight to go see what another group of people are. I don't care what they're doing. I want to see the fight. Well, it's the same thing with the books, right? Season 4 is hailed as one of the best seasons of Game of Thrones. Season 3 and 4, probably the 2 best seasons, hands down by bar none.
I would like to say that
yeah,
which we can get into more detail when you finish your thought. Sorry to interrupt, but the Tyrion trial in both the book and the show is hands down probably my favorite part of the series. I just love the way Peter Dinklage created Tyrion, like brought him to life and had it in that scene, and then the way Martin wrote it. It was just amazingly done. It's so emotional and powerful for me, and I just loved reading it and watching it.
You've got Oberlin, right? Oberyn Martell, and this brings back to the whole part about his sister being abused and murdered by the Mountain, as well as her children. And I'm not gonna say certain words on this show, but you can get the idea from what we're hinting towards. Like I said, George Martin doesn't hint away from anything that's considered rough. But Oberyn Martell hails from Dorne, which is where the Martells are. And in season 4, he's coming there because there's been a lot of bad blood between the Martells and the Lannisters. Lannisters, they heavily, control, or Tywin's the most powerful man in the Seven Kingdoms, no doubt. They have heavy influence over the Iron Bank of Bravos. Well, but the Martells control the majority of the most powerful military, so you kind of need them on your side. They have some of the best fighters. What's the best way to do that? Get the Martells to come to the royal wedding. Well, then you got Olenna. That is that old bat is crafty as all get out. One of my favorite characters. I really loved. She had a good death. She went out in an okay way. I was all right with her. But thanks to her and Peter, they murdered Joffrey. Thank God. But rid him of the world. Good Lord. Filthy child.
One of the characters in all of fiction next to Dolores Umbridge.
Yeah.
Dolores Umbridge. This is like that little laugh she would do. I will not tell lies. Write it down, child. And Dumbledore's over there, just I want to do some stuff right now that's considered wrong. Sock her right in the face. Don't care that she happens to be one of the Ministry of Magic's top people. No. Dumbledore would have committed treason, and he would have. She's just over there, just believe to learn important lessons about learning and growth. We're gonna all be best friends. And Ron's brothers is just unlikely. But yeah, no, Dolores Umbridge, what a troll. In every literal sense of the word. Joffrey, for those of you who haven't watched Game of Thrones, is this blonde-haired little prick who is the quote-unquote king. And I hope that language isn't too much for some people. We try to keep it PG on here, but that's the best way to describe him. He's this snarky, nasty little spawn from Cersei and Jaime, and he's got the crown due to Cersei murdering her husband, because why not? Wouldn't put anything past her. If Robert would have stayed in charge, things would have been all right. Ned would have stayed alive. Joffrey would have remained the ancestral little bastard that he was. And Sansa, I don't understand why she didn't go with the Hound immediately when he offered. That would have been the best thing for her. But she was still the little, I love Joffrey, and oh, Joffrey. And I'm just be quiet. I don't want to see your face. I don't want to hear the words from your mouth. You are annoying. Arya I loved Arya, but anyways. So for those of you who haven't seen it, Joffrey became the king. Oh gosh, around season 2, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah, season 1 ends with Ned getting beheaded. Oh yeah, by the way, spoiler alert! If any of you are listening to this podcast, should have started with that.
Yeah, this episode, you don't want to listen to this episode if you haven't watched it in its entirety, because we're basically going to be ranting about it.
Yeah.
Apologies, but yeah, we're going to be spoiling just pretty much everything.
I think it was popular enough that most people watched it if they hadn't read the books.
Yeah.
But just a heads up in case.
In case. So Joffrey became the king, and it was him along with Ilan Payne. He was actually, this was one thing that was surprising about Cersei. Um, the gal who acted Lena Headey, she did a phenomenal job as Cersei. Great job. She actually got hate mail. Her and Joffrey's actor
Yep.
literally got the death threats from fans because they hated them so much. It's like, so what? They did their job acting as a character, and you despise them so much you're going to threaten them.
That's ridiculous.
If you're that butthurt, don't watch the show.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyways,
They're actors. It wasn't they were actually that person. It's the fictional character they're portraying.
guess what? It's not real life. Did you know that? It's fake. No, actually, there's a portal. There's a barrier shield. If you go across the Atlantic Ocean, once you pass a certain point geographically, you'll enter Westeros. That's actually
Oh.
the UK. It's well, the UK on our map is actually falsified. Google Maps is wrong. Everything geologically and historically from our country that we know, we're actually living in the Matrix, and Westeros is just right across the sea. We're in the undiscovered land that Arya was setting off to see at the end of the show. So yeah, Westeros is right over there. We're living in a fairy tale. So yeah, that was all sarcasm, by the way. So Joffrey, he becomes the king, and he's the reason that Ned lost his head. Cersei actually tried to stop Joffrey from killing Ned Stark. She's like, he'd be better prisoner. A great way to get the Starks to be at our heels forever, essentially. And of course, he had to not listen to his mother because he's a whiny little. And everybody hated Joffrey, rightfully so.
Mhm.
He was a horrible character. He was nasty, vile little rat. And I think the only other person that was hated more than him in the show was probably Ramsay Snow, or even more so than him, Walder Frey. And
Yeah.
when Arya took him out with the faceless mask and made him devour his own kin, oh, that was glorious. I mean, not about the cannibal stuff, but I mean, dude got what was coming to him.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
But I laugh when I see him because I'm just like, Mom, children out of bed, children in the corridor. They're supposed to be out of bed, you bumbling idiot. Argus Filch from Harry Potter, man. You just never. And one of the original Doctor Who's, David Bradley, is a phenomenal actor. For those of you who don't know the history of UK actors who played the original Doctor Who's, David Bradley was one of them. And a great doctor, mind you. He came back in a special with Peter Capaldi. It was either Peter Capaldi or Matt Smith. Well, it's Peter Capaldi. Yeah. Anyways, but so I think really, you come in season 3, and I'm trying to think of the things that happened in season 3 that were kind of like just like, holy crap. So let's go through season 3 and talk about what really kind of like took us off guard. So Alfred or Orion, if either one of you want to touch on season 3 points lead up to the Red Wedding.
It's been
Might have
so
to give me a second.
long.
I gotta look at I'm gonna look up the episode guide.
Like it all blends together for me right now.
Little recap, right? Season 1 ends with Ned being beheaded. Season 2 starts, Joffrey takes over.
Yep.
Tyrion sticks around King's Landing, and you've got the Battle of the Blackwater. So Tyrion is currently he's being held by Catelyn Stark. She takes him to the twins. Well, she takes him to her sister's place, which is not actually called the twins. It's called the
Vale.
The Vale of Aaron. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, there's another whiny little snot, Aaron. I just want to like trample him every time he's like, mommy. Oh no, please don't.
Oh yeah, okay. So we've got Daenerys gets the Unsullied. Jaime loses his hand. That's when Jon meets his little
wildling.
Yep.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
I think the season ends. Doesn't Mormont die in this season, or is it the next season?
So you've got the guy there, the wildling guy who's got all the daughters, and season 3 ends.
That's right.
With him getting completely just brutally like Mormont gets gutted. Everybody's like all that stuff happening. Jon escapes the wildlings because season 4, not long after the Red Wedding, you have the wildlings come to the wall, and that whole time Jon's being just completely ridiculed by everybody at the Night's Watch. And at the end, season 5, Jon gets, after becoming Lord Commander, gutted. That's season 5. But yeah, season 3, so you've got all of those. She gets the Unsullied. In season 4, doesn't she go to Karth in season 4? I feel like she does.
I think she does. Breaker of Chains, yeah, that's when she.
Yep. She goes to Karth. The greatest city that ever is or was did not become this way, mother of dragons, because we let outsiders in. Like, those warlocks were creepy looking. The whole purple lips and like Daenerys's dragons getting taken from her, and then her just going straight mother of dragons on Karth at the end. Oh, glorious.
Yeah.
What was for you? What was your favorite arc for Daenerys, for either of you in the show?
Oh, definitely not her ending arc. I think that's where it went awry. But I think for her, the walking out of the I'm gonna blank on what it's called, but where all the previous wives of the Dothraki leaders were held. Yeah,
you're talking about Vaes Dothrak.
Yeah, when she walks out of there changed, I think that's the moment where most people are like ready to follow her to the ends of the earth. And then when her arc turns back the other way and goes like, okay, why am I following this person again? That's where I feel like the story just went, because she was such a character built to break her family's lineage, and just to fall back to the same victimhood of it, just it's such a bitter pill for me that she didn't succeed in going away from the Mad King's legacy. And maybe that's his brilliance of writing, that you want it, and then you don't get it. But it just, that one was always bitter.
I think I would be okay with it if I saw it in completion in the books, because the showrunners were so done with the series and they rushed it.
Yeah.
I think that's where I have the problem, because you have up until that point, there's very little hinting of her going crazy. Like, it's there, but I'm with you, Ryan. I felt more like she was going to break the mold from the way the showrunner set it up, even the way that Martin set it up in the books. I thought she was going to break the mold, which, knowing his writing and how all of your characters you love die, everybody fails kind of thing, I guess it's expected. But the rushed way it was done in the show kind of killed it for me. Like, if done right, I could understand it. But the way it was done, I was like, no.
Can you look up the arc where the city where she picked up the Unsullied, that city that she was at, where she picked up Dario Naharis? That was a really good arc. You were mentioning about the Unsullied, and that was where she picked up Dario Naharis because he took out the other 2 members. There was 3 warriors, and Dario Naharis took out the other 2.
Yeah,
and then they sacked that city.
That was like right in between season 3 and 4 too, wasn't it? Because like it ends with them all 3 there, and then the next season he's killed them and he's the only one left.
Yeah,
because it's a different actor too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to know what that city's called, because they completely
to trade 1 dragon for the Unsullied.
That was a really good arc, though. I mean, her getting the Unsullied and breaking all of their chains, and then getting Dario Naharis. You really weren't sure about him at first.
Yeah,
he's there with those other warriors. That guy's just like, I think I saw you at some blah blah blah, and he's just like, you know exactly what he says. Show me, yeah, okay, you real treasure of the human race.
And I definitely think they did a really good job of the people that surrounded Daenerys having different reasons for following her. Like his was lust. Mormont's, that was his only true loyalty, was to Daenerys after being so disloyal in the past. Tyrion was following her because he had to be the one to bring the rightful ruler that was going to fix things, and Varys like scheming behind. Like each one had their own different reason for following that kind of
Mhm.
led their path.
Yeah,
Astapor is where
Mormont was
she bought the
beloved.
Unsullied.
What's that, Alfred?
Astapor was where she bought the Unsullied.
Astapor was my favorite arc with
Mhm.
Daenerys. That was just that place getting sacked, but then all the people just like, "Whoa, da, da," and the whole arena, "Ja, da, da, da." They're like backing up against because she did all that stuff that led up to them being at that wasn't Karth, that was after Karth.
Yep.
When
Mhm.
she took over that city and basically it's just like, I'm not going to leave. I'm just going to stay here, the queen across the sea, and just let the freedom. But you were talking about Jorah Mormont, he was there for Daenerys because truly at first his intentions were malice.
Mhm.
He fell in love with her. He was truly
Mhm.
there because he actually loved her. Daria
Mhm.
Naharis believed in her as a leader and he wanted to marry her. He loved her as well, but for different reasons. And well, Varys is just intelligent. So,
Mhm.
And he knew he was getting ready to Jon's the rightful heir.
Mhm.
And Tyrion, for how intelligent he is, they ruined his character. He would not stand by and just watch Varys get burned. That is not who Tyrion is. Not after what Varys did for him.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
I
yeah,
I will say I get why the show excluded him, but Strong Belwas is one of my favorites. If not for the comedy sake around him, just he's like just a cool character. A big heavy set man who's an expert swordsman and fighter.
which character was that again, Alfred?
Strong Belwas. He's from the books, not the TV series.
Right. Okay. I was going to say like a really really big sword wielder characters that we know from the show would be the Hound.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously the Mountain, but he really wasn't. His only importance to the story was the fact that he killed Oberyn's sister and his nieces, and that he was the Hound's brother. And it was really just the arc for the Hound. But one of my favorite characters that didn't really get shined on until later, and they changed actors for him as well. But Beric Dondarrion of the Brotherhood, that dude
Mhm.
was a beast,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and he was loyal to Ned Stark as well. That was one thing that like people forget about it. But when Ned was sitting there with his cane, his knee had already been speared through by Jaime's people. He was sitting there. He's like, "Sir Beric Dondarrion, hunt down the Mountain and bring him to justice." People forgot about that, and they saw Beric Dondarrion for that split second. It was a different actor. So when Beric showed up again during the point where Arya was having her little cut her hair short, she was over there with Pie and all the other characters, and she met one of the other most cool characters ever, was the Bravosi faceless man, Jaqen H'ghar. And
Yeah.
I'm really mad about that because, first of all, you want a theory that'll blow your mind that I've told other people? You remember the Bravosi sword dancer from that Arya, her dancing master?
Yep.
"I'm your
Mhm.
dancing master. You must be swift, fast as a cat. Ah, 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 yes. Neato." That, I'm pretty sure, was Jaqen H'ghar. He was a
Very well
I could
could
Bravosi
have.
swordsman. He was there for Arya. He had an eye on her and just magically ended up in the same place she was after what's his name from the Night's Watch took her to get her towards the Black so that she could be safe. And Jaqen H'ghar just happened to be captured at King's Landing. We
does
never saw him die. I'm just saying.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Does the Bravosi Swordmaster say, what do we say? He's the one that introduces her to the saying, what do we say to the god of death?
Yeah.
What do we say to the god of death? Not today.
And I'm
And
pretty sure that's similar along the lines of the Faceless Men. I don't know if they ever repeat that saying, but very similar to their philosophy, I feel.
Mhm.
it is the same. That it only the faceless men say that phrase. Everybody else in Bravosi, they don't follow the god of death. I mean, that's just where the Iron Bank is. But he was the first sword of Bravos. And then when the people are coming, he's like, "Go, child, flee. What do we say to the god of death?" not
Not
today.
today.
And then you just hear swords clashing, but you don't see him die unless I physically see it happen. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
And the fact that after Ned was killed, and you had that one guy, what was his name? Tyrion was always hanging out with him. He had the dark black hair, and he took all the
Braun?
people from. No, not Braun. The guy who he always took people from King's Landing and other places to the Night's Watch. He was sitting there joking with Tyrion, being like, "Ah, yeah, that's a good one." And he's like, he had that sword he put to the dude's thigh who tried to come after them. He's just like, "Hey, you could, but pretty fast here to nick that artery. It'll be a weapon for you, wouldn't it?" And he was a friend of Ned Stark's as well. Ned told
I
him
forget who
to
it is.
take Arya.
Yeah.
Man, he was a cool character. But the thing is, he takes all these people. Now, Jack and Hagar, with how amazing he is with his ability to just magically take that whole arc where Arya was there, that broken down hold fast where she was serving Tywin, and they were trying to figure out where's the Brotherhood. Oh, you know about it. And they're like, feeding like bugs to them. Well, Jack and Hagar just literally took out everybody like it was nothing. And he got caught, and he just happens to be the leader of the faceless men. Right. Yeah, no, sorry, didn't happen. Again, he got himself purposely caught so he could keep an eye on Arya and give her that coin so she could eventually find her way to Bravos and learn under the faceless men. So I do believe her dancing master was actually Jack and Hagar, and that's just a theory that I've had for a while.
I could definitely buy that.
And then they ruined Arya's arc with the whole Bravosi faceless training. I mean, we never see Jack and Hagar again. We never learn more about the whole faceless men and the god of death. And she gets stabbed like more times than a cat has lives by that chick and manages to magically survive. Arya, really? There were so many illogical things that happened during that arc that really just frustrated me. So, but that happened after her arc with the Hound, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. Which that is a great arc. Like
Yeah.
those two together really built Arya because she essentially wanted to be the Hound prior to hanging out with the Hound. She wanted that lifestyle. And I feel like she learned it isn't the best lifestyle and that she still wanted it, but there were other things that she needed to incorporate it if she wanted it to be a successful lifestyle.
And then to also want to kill him and then go to forgiving him and taking him off of her list. Like just the full circle of her arc there. But she's absolutely one of my favorite characters from the entire series. And I think the unresolved stuff from the Faceless Men and the God of Death is what I think he would have taken into a spin-off series of her traveling on her own, is going deeper into all of that. And I think that's kind of what the setup was for that. But I don't know if that was his idea when she goes off on her own, or if that's what the writers took over in the last two seasons. Because I know he had input, but I think it was mostly like we took it in our own direction based on like little recommendation from him.
Yeah.
I just remember Brienne of Tarth was another really awesome character. And for those of you who don't know, she's also Captain Phasma from the horribly cinematic sequel Star Wars movies. You'll get to hear us ramble about that another day. But she was one of the coolest characters in the show. A female who is tougher than most all of the knights, including the Hound. She kicked the Hound's butt, plain and simple, no matter what you say. And I mean, the woman could split a tree with her sword. I mean, she was a savage, but she never wanted to be called a knight. And when Podrick was with her, she's just like, I'm not a. Oh, fine. Like, it took a while for her to be like, it's okay. And her arc with it wasn't her fault that she fought the Hound. Like, her and the Hound fighting, neither one of them were in the wrong.
No.
They were honestly just both trying to protect Arya. I was actually mad at Arya for that point. Like, there was no reason for a fight between the Mountain or between the Hound and Brienne of Tarth. Arya should have just been like, Brienne, why are you here? I swore to your lady mother that I would get you. She's like, well, I'm fine. I don't need it. Like, just keep going. I'm with the Hound. We're on our own thing. And they could have gone their separate ways, but I get why they did it. Arya had to go on her own for her own little arc, but that was a really sad scene. Like that was the first time you felt sadness for the Hound. You actually felt pity for him. He's just like, just kill me, kill me, kill me. And she just walks away, and she's just like,
You're not on my list.
nope, not on my list anymore. He's just,
I will say, Ryan, you wouldn't know this because of the books, but so if you ever intend to read the books, I apologize.
That's okay.
Catelyn Stark comes back as Lady Stoneheart.
She does
because of the is it Beric Dondarrion? Don't they bring her back?
Beric Dondarrion from the Brotherhood. It has to do with the Lord of Light and the old gods and the new, and a bit more like lore that gets explained about some of the gods in the Game of Thrones universe. So she is brought back, just like Alfred mentioned.
And she's like a wraith, like a living revenant of Catelyn, who's just out for revenge. And if I'm not mistaken, the book series ends with her having Brienne, right? Brienne is in her grasps.
So Brienne was in service to Lady Catelyn, and then she goes off she swears that she'll bring her daughters back. So Brienne leaves, and then at that point, Catelyn gets murdered at the Red Wedding. And I don't remember, because I've only read through, for the books, I've only read through 4. And so I'm not so sure after that point.
I think I remember, because I don't know where the story would have went after this. In book 5, I'm pretty sure Brienne runs into Catelyn while she's looking for the girls, and basically Lady Stoneheart, I don't know exactly how it's supposed to be explained, but basically she's out to kill everybody she ever knew in life, and she has Brienne and is hanging her at the moment, and that's where Brienne's chapter ends. Because Lady Stoneheart's killing everybody that she knew for revenge. But it's such an interesting story arc because you have an ally you had brought back by the Lord of Light, and now she's not necessarily an ally or a good person. She's a revenant seeking revenge. And it does go back to what you were saying, Nathan, about what is the Lord of Light? Who is he? What is he doing? If he's supposed to be a positive influence, and when you bring somebody back, they're attempting to murder everybody.
And also, if the Lord of Light is all good and supposed to be this, wonderful God, how would the Lord of Light have allowed the children of the Force to create the Night King and allow him to go on as long as he did with the White Walkers? And just when you bring somebody back from the dead unnaturally, that is it's bad, it's evil, it's not good. And so you would think that, like, even people like Melisandre, I mean, she was basically a witch, essentially. And the thing that she did, like the way that she killed Renly Baratheon, with using basically blood magic. I mean, she talks about the Lord of Light. So is this Lord of Light really actually good? I don't think so. I don't really think any of the gods in this universe are good necessarily. Maybe they talk about the old gods and the new. They talk about the Lord of Light and the God of Death. I think the gods are just really a metaphor for what people believe in and what they think is right and what they think isn't. I think the Lord of Light is just a manifestation of magic that is used and gifted to certain individuals who have maybe a higher calling, or they're just lucky.
Yeah.
Honestly, I will say that was an amazing reveal when we found out how the Night King was formed. I was like, oh, damn.
I mean, and that wasn't even magic, like Lord of Light magic. That was like magic from the fist of, like, the first men and the children of the forest. We really didn't get much on them either. Like, we had the three-eyed raven, and again, by the way, the three-eyed raven, if you remember from the beginning of Star Wars, The Force Awakens, Lord Sateka, that Poe was talking to, that was the three-eyed raven in the Game of Thrones show.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, he's just like, you may try. Like that's the same guy who did the. Sorry, all I can think of right now is Kylo Kylo Greg, an old Greg rendition of Kylo Ren, which I'll show you guys later. Um, but the whole thing with the three-eyed raven, this is supposed to be some entity that sees everything from the past, the present, and the future, all on just this one clear present stream. So therefore, they know exactly what's going to happen. So that brings me to a question about Bran. If he was being led to become the new three-eyed raven, wouldn't he have done something more to have secured a victory? He just goes around like this emotionless zombie, just like, I'm not Bran Stark. I'm the three-eyed raven. Yeah, we know. You're almost as bad as Data in Star Trek. I'm an android. We know. Like, thanks.
I
Apparently,
could not stand the ending of the series,
Yeah.
the TV series where Bran's like, "Oh, what do you think they brought me for? I'm gonna be the new king." What?
you already knew that clearly.
Yeah.
So where was your help along the way when all these people died? And you knew exactly how to defeat the Night King. So why didn't you just tell them,
Yeah,
"Oh, I can't be the one to say. You have to No, no. If you can't be the one to say, you need to give us a reason why. You need to explain this. If you are just an overseer, basically a protector of all memories, then you need to say that you're basically worthless and have nothing to add besides the fact that you have all the memories from the past, present, and future. And that's all that you
I
are.
know. I know we talked about it in the Tolkien episode, but Gandalf is an amazing representation of what Bran should have been. He's an all-powerful being who can, well, essentially all-powerful wizard, uh, one of the Astari, and he does research and he knows a lot and is very powerful, but limits are put on him where I have to go research this. So by the time I figure it out, it's too late. I will use magic to stop the Balrog, but it also means that I'm going to have to face off with him. Those things put limits on the character himself, so he can't just rule over everybody and defeat everybody instantly. He had to go through that transformation to become Gandalf the White. Uh, Whereas Bran is portrayed as, oh, I can see the past, present, and future. I know all that's going to happen. I have all the answers, but I'm just not going to tell you for no good reason.
And I think part of that was supposed to be like the free will thing. If I tell you how it's supposed to be, will it be if you're going to change what you do? And, or like Doctor Strange in the end game, spoiler alert, seeing all the paths that could be and only one do they succeed. Like if you change anything, knowing the past, the present, and the future, is that going to change what happens? Or is it set in stone regardless? And I think that's where it could have gone many different ways. But when they did make him the three-eye raven, they just had nowhere for his story to go but along for the ride. And then I definitely thought it was so stupid to make him the king in the end, because like he's the three-eye raven and the king. So what? There's going to be prosperity forever because he knows everything. Like it
He
was
just
too
he just
simple.
And then it
he
defeats the whole
literally
purpose.
just said, exactly. If he can't say anything, what's the purpose of him being the king? Like, you're
Yeah,
not going to tell your advisors anything. Just, man, good luck. I know everything, but you're just going to have to figure it out. Really, talked about Doctor Strange, all these millions of future possibilities that he saw, and only one. And at that very last point, Iron Man's looking over, and Doctor Strange is just like,
yep, this is the one.
he didn't say anything,
Hmm.
but he's just like, look, Doctor Strange knew what was going to happen, but him letting Iron Man know was like, that was how it was achieved. So therefore, with Bran being the three-eyed raven, and according to the man himself, George Martin, he wrote the end of the series for Bran to be the king. Well, I'll believe that when I see that,
Yep.
Grandpa, because right now, what I saw at the end of the Game of Thrones series is you've got a bunch of degenerates who are now part of the council, and like you've got great people in those, like Sam as the Maester. Okay, that makes sense. Braun as the Master of Coin. I think that's just a hilarious hilarious little joke that Tyrion would do.
Yeah.
Tyrion having to serve penance, I loved because it makes sense for his character for the mistakes that he made. So Bran being like, yeah, no, you made mistakes, so you're gonna fix those by serving me because I know everything that ever was, will be, and is. But I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to watch you be miserable while you atone for all of your sins. You know, like Sansa becoming Queen of the North, probably the only thing that actually made somewhat any lick of any sense.
I actually didn't mind Jon Snow going north of the wall being banished.
No, no. I mean,
The only alternative I thought would have been him and Arya going somewhere together. Like keeping those two together because they were the pair of the siblings that most bonded. So them going off into the yonder together made sense to me, but I didn't see Arya going north. So I see where that had to divide if they were going to split.
yeah, exactly. And no, it's
Can we
John
talk about
going.
how amazing of a reunion that was for a second when they finally come back and see one another?
Yeah.
That I
That
love.
was heartfelt.
Mm-hmm.
That was truly heartfelt because John and Arya were like it was one of the best character combinations of this show. I mean, from the very very beginning, you knew that they had a special bond. Even in the books too. John having needle made for her and her coming up with that name like Sansa may have her sewing needles, but I've got a needle of my own.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, do you know how to do it? She's like, stick him with the pointy end. Yeah, you've got the idea. But Arya becoming kind of like a nomad, I guess it makes sense. I mean, she never wanted to be a lady, and she
Yeah.
wanted to be a warrior or like a captain or an adventurer. That's who she was. John going north of the wall, I don't really think that means much. I'm pretty sure he'll be allowed to come into the north anytime he deems fit. His sister's the queen of the north. The north is the bigger than all the other kingdoms combined. Who's really going to come up there? Bran's the
Yeah.
king. You think Bran's my brother and his weird three-eyed raven voice? Oh, I saw my brother come across Castle Black and he's in the north now. Execute him immediately. No, he wouldn't do that. He'd just be like, he would see it and he would just literally not tell anybody because again, he can't because we just got done talking about the fact he won't say anything. And anybody else in the north who would see John up there, they'd just be like, "Hey, John, welcome," and they would be fine with it.
Yeah. I mean,
And
if John sat on the throne, everybody would follow him anyway. So
John murdered Daenerys. Like, thank you. Like somebody had to. And
in,
and then
in that
punished for it.
scenario, yes, but I think they could have gone a different way with that. But
I think
I also think the reunion of Arya and Sansa being so divided in who they were and how much they hated each other, but came back together knowing that they were sisters, knowing they still had that bond, and then how everything culminated with Littlefinger and trusting each other in the right moment, I think was excellently portrayed.
especially because they come in and you're like, oh my god, did they not work out their problems when the scene cut? And then Baelish is just laughing in the corner, and they're like, oh, Baelish, come forward, please. And then Arya comes out of the corner, and they're all like, you're charged with blah 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 blah.
They never mistrusted each other. All the stuff that Arya was talking to Sansa about was a coup d'etat. They wanted because Peeta is one of the like cleverest people in the show, and he's always watching. So Arya had to act like that in the open, but all along these were literally like, and I think some of the things she was saying about like Sansa being in love with John, I think that was just poor dialogue writing. Because it was never showed that Sansa had any interest whatsoever in John in that sort of way. And it would have been okay. I mean, they weren't actually related technically.
Half cousin,
Cousins,
half
yeah.
brother. I mean, he's half Stark, half Targaryen, so I guess that makes them
Yeah, it was
part
cousins
related.
because it's Ned's sister. So
they would be cousins, wouldn't they? So I guess still no. Yeah.
But hey, it's
Um.
better than siblings, which is
But
rampant in Game of Thrones.
also Daenerys and he were cousins too. So
Oh
Was
yeah,
it?
right. Always
Wasn't
seem
she
to
his aunt?
forget she
Hmm?
was. Yeah, which makes it worse.
Yeah. But
It really does.
so to kind of go back to him finishing the books and a little bit of what we touched on,
Yeah.
having all the characters that he wrote and trying to like wrap up all these storylines, and then on top of that, the show finishing before his books came out, I think had put so much pressure on him on how to end it that there's no good way he can end it right now that will make everyone happy. Like
No.
there's no solution. He's written himself, and it's not entirely its fault. The show ending the way it did, and some of the things that the show took off in their own creative spin has given him no way, because he can't be like, these were my ideas, and then
Right.
take it a little bit different way. So like that, him being tired and like the pressure of the fans that have put on him and all that stuff culminating, like I don't foresee him ever finishing this series personally. I hope he does, for the people that have been waiting for it for a very long time, but there's no way in my mind that he can pull it off the way he wants it to in the beginning.
If I were him, I would just take the show and leave it as the show and then write a different ending.
Mhm.
This way, you're right, you won't make everybody happy, but you have somewhat of a creative miracle in the sense that the show's done and people who like the show can like the show. People
Mhm.
who didn't like the show, you can try and create something different so that you can, it's almost like an alternate ending.
Yeah.
Whichever one you want to follow, you can. But I'm with you. I don't think he'll ever finish it before his time on this world is over.
No, he'll it sounds mean, but I mean the dude's 78 years old. He's gonna pass away before he finishes it. I mean, he's talked about how he's 1,200 pages into the Winds of Winter, and he still has another like 500 pages to go. Like, dude, a 1,700 page book. Why did you do this to yourself? And he says
Yeah,
that a Song of Spring is going to be even longer. Bro, brother,
Yeah.
homie, whatever phrase you like to say. My guy, there's no reason for a 2,000 page book. This is one thing that I think Brandon Sanderson kind of wrote himself into a corner with the Stormlight archives, as well as because each of those books, I'm just like, dude, are you trying to set a record? Like 1,200 pages or more for each of those books. I'm just like, holy mother of Mary and all that's holy. Like, how?
I
These
do love it
400,
though.
no, I get it. Like, it's epic. It's epic for sure. I mean,
But I
I
will
just
say
don't,
1,700 pages is a lot, especially for Martin. Like
Mhm.
I reading Sanderson, I know why it's as long as it is, and I think he does better than Martin as far as writing goes.
yeah.
But at the same time, you know what, Martin, just publish what you have, the first 600 pages or whatever. Publish that, and then just make your series 7 or 8 books rather than this 5 you want it to be,
Mhm.
or 7, or whatever his number is.
Here's a great idea. Take what you wanted to do with the Song of Spring, and just add that into the Winds of Winter and make the Winds of Winter the finale and just look at what you've got with the Winds of Winter. Maybe that's why you can't get any words out. It's because you're trying to make it too long into what it's not. So just take the Winds of Winter and the Song of Spring and just combine them, whatever you want to title it, leave it as the Winds of Winter or whatever, and just call it good with 6 books, and people can have the ending. They can have a little bit of closure. Not everybody's going to be happy. That just is what it is with books and TV shows. Um, but maybe if he did that, he would have more time to go after like different like side quest books like Aria, or following more stuff about like House of the Dragon. Um,
Uh, who's that kid that they meet in the books? He's supposed to be another potential heir that was secreted away by the Lords of Light, I think, or somebody secrets him away. Forget what his name is, but
mm,
I remember they're on
not
a
remembering.
small little ship. I'll look it up really quick. but there's
Yeah.
like we're talking about, there's so many side characters with so many different stories that at some point, you know what, just in a side note, in a little exposition, say, okay, these people were killed off, or the pirates, Greyjoys were sunk at sea, so we don't have to worry about
Yep.
their arc anymore.
And while Alfred is looking this up, I will leave y'all who are listening with some closing thoughts. Since we're getting close to the end of this hour of the podcast, but for those of you who are listening, and hopefully you're enjoying the content, if you have any requests for anything that you'd like us to do reviews on, talk about, just ramble on about books, movies, TV shows, whatever it might be, anime, manga, comic books, etc., please, send us some messages on TikTok, or once we get stuff up onto YouTube and things like that, we would love to talk with y'all about that. If you need to find me on social media, you can find me at the Funky Fantasy Man, or author narrator Nathan Helm on TikTok and Facebook. And Ryan, if you want to share
Yeah.
yours.
We also have our email if you want to send in questions to us at warofnerdspodcast@gmail.com. You can find me at stratoseros.com. That's my website, or as author Stratos Eros on TikTok.
I can't find it right now, but if anybody can, put it in the comments so that we can discuss it there. But I'm Alfred Muller. You can follow me on Alfred Muller 922 on TikTok, and there's a link tree in my bio there, so you can follow me on all my other socials as well.
And with that, that's a wrap, folks. That's a little bit of us rambling about Game of Thrones and the things that we enjoyed about the TV show and the books, and some of the things we thought could have, possibly gone different, but that's the beauty of it all. So I believe we've got a couple of exciting episodes coming up next. We're going to have a interview with an indie author who writes horror and fantasy by the name of Z Martin, and that's going to be a episode you do not want to miss. So I hope y'all will stay tuned and come back for that episode, as well as our episode on, I believe the next one's either going to be Star Wars or a review on the TV show Arrow. It's going to be one of those.
We also have an interview coming up with a YouTube creator, Data782. He's a video game streamer and a Star Trek fanatic, so don't miss that one either.
Yeah, we're very excited. We're hoping that more of these interviews start popping in. We've got some potentials with some anime voice actors that is we're not 100% sure on, but we're feeling pretty good about it. And we'll have some more interviews throughout the first season, but I guarantee come season 2, the interviews will definitely be coming in a lot better. But we'll have a few more indie author interviews for season 1. But we've got a lot of exciting stuff. What's that?
We should be doing some TikTok lives probably later in the season. Once we start putting them out on, once they start coming out, we'll have some TikTok lives, which will be fun, and you guys can interact with us directly.
Yeah, I think we'll do some teasers too, probably leading up to the release of this season, where we'll start putting out little tidbits as well.
Yeah.
We
so
will,
if you're watching
100%.
this,
they're already out.
Ooh.
They are, yes, because we are recording this a pre. So when you see it, you'll know what it is. But this has been your bearded nerdy hosts. I'm the Funky Fantasy Man. Up north, you've got
the bull, also Alfred Muller.
And Stratos Eros.
And Funky Fantasy, the bull. Stratos Eros, bum bum ba dum bum. It's the War of Nerds. War on, my folks.